All right. Thank you, Roman. Does that mean we're live? We're live? Can we
Yeah.
confirm? All right.
Justin Kerr, you're joining us on this live stream.
This is awesome. The gang's all here. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. This is Gymnasium's live stream 6. Yeah,
6.0.
6.0. Here at Gymnasium, we like to share our love.
Jeremy, are you wearing a Valentine hat?
I am.
Ah,
Share
nice.
our love of learning. Am I right?
That's what one of these hearts says. Learn more.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, that's a gym short right there, Design Systems.
Those look great. Those look very tasty.
Yeah, they look like they taste better than they do, but that's the thing with these candies.
Why are we here today on
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I know why.
Yeah.
It started with you showing me a trick to generate a PDF
Right.
with ChatGPT,
Yep.
and then things snowballed.
Yeah. As they tend to do, they snowballed. We the name of this live stream. By the way, I'm Jeremy Osborne. This is Andrew Miller,
Yep.
and this is Take Note, transcribing images using ChatGPT. If you haven't seen some of the live streams we've done in the past, we kind of tend to go in a little bit planned, a little bit unplanned. If you're not familiar with where we're from, gymnasium.com. We have free online courses, and one of the reasons we're doing this is because it's actually really tricky to make a course on this technology that is constantly evolving, changing, not really ready for prime time all the time. So we're going to throw our standard disclaimers in here. As Andrew mentioned, like we do kind of go down this wayward path a little bit. We'll be using ChatGPT 4 here. So that's one important caveat. If you're going to try to do some of the stuff that we're going to show you with ChatGPT 3.5, which is the free version, what's going to happen, Andrew?
You're gonna be stuck. You're not gonna be able to get started, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's basically not gonna work. And in fairness to the other platforms, we do look and see what can be done with things like Bard or Gemini, whatever they're calling it this week, and Bing, Copilot,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that.
Yep. All the things.
Yeah, but this particular topic is something that is pretty much unique to
Yeah.
of the main AI platforms, pretty much unique to
Yeah.
GPT-4.
Although it occurred to me actually as we were, a lot of this technology that we're going to show you a couple different things. Specifically, we'll be uploading, giving ChatGPT some images, and then asking it to do various things with them. And that's really just the first part. And you've probably seen some level of this technology. It's kind of baked into a lot of things. I guess even like you know the the photo features in a lot of phones these days can identify objects inside of an image, right? So with your iPhone or I guess Android, you can take a photo of a plant and it will tell you like, hey, that looks like a lily or whatever. So this technology is more or less exposed depending on how much control these folks are giving you. But you'll see here that we can do a couple different things with it. So why don't we just jump right in? So I'm going to share this. Okay, so so just to get things started, so the first thing again, just to point out here in the top left corner, ChatGPT 4 versus 3.5. Again, we happen to have a team account, so that that gives us a little bit more capabilities than if you upgrade to the personal plan, I guess.
Jeremy, can I just point out how funny it is that yesterday our our conversations are still there, and the
Oh
one
yeah.
at the top is the AI money making.
Yeah, we should actually point that out at some point. That was just as we tend to do, we get a little loopy at the end of our sessions. That one's actually a fun one to look at, because we basically gave it a, well, should we just, I don't know. Let's not get too distracted. So let's go. Yeah, it is good. So let's go ahead and we'll make a new chat, which you'll see in the bottom left of the dialog box. There is a small file attachment icon. So again, if you're in 3.5, you're not going to see that. It's just not an option. And we tried to fake it out yesterday, drag an image into that. Just no, it doesn't do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we'll start really simple. You can see I'm wearing my Valentine's Day hat. Okay. See, actually, did I even put that in there? No, I didn't. Shoot. Well, that was a mistake. There's mistake number one. Let me see if I can go find it.
What are you looking for? Your hat?
Yeah, so I did like the hat. I don't know. It might not be here. All right. Well, it's not a good start. So what I had done before was upload a photo of me with my hat, and it looked at it and said, "Yeah, that looks like a straw hat," and that was that. So that's not going to work. Let's go ahead and do another one. So we're going to start off with another image here. So this is kind of where we start when we were playing around. I found these recipes from an old kind of family cookbook, and I was curious to see what would happen if we uploaded that. So just to show you here, this is the original recipe. This original photo. Just took it with my phone, and I can show you what that looks like at some point, if necessary, because the interface that I used here was actually ChatGPT's mobile app, which allows you to do all of this on the fly. And again, I'll kind of show you that at some point. But this is the image that it's going to work with. And if you don't tell it to do anything, it's just going to kind of look at it. It's going to try to understand what it sees. And hopefully ChatGPT's servers are on our side today. We did run into some issues yesterday afternoon, where the servers were not behaving. And hopefully
that looks a little stuck to me.
it does. In theory, I can go back and find.
Well, you can just stop it, and something does seem to have gone wrong. They definitely follow best practices for useful dialogue error messages.
Yep. Okay, if it gives us a problem, another one, I'm going to go back to the saved one.
Okay.
This is not looking good.
No.
Man, we did such good.
I know. But this is the thing. You can plan so much, and then.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like live television.
All right, let's go to the old one. See? So this is, again, the previous version. We did the same thing. And this time, again, what I was going to show you is originally, if you just put the image up, it will give you, it'll say, well, what do you want to do with it? In this case, what I just said was transcribe. So what it's doing is some version of OCR, so optical character recognition. And it just tells you the image contains a handwritten recipe for saffron bread. Here's the transcription. And it kind of codes it all out for you. So it gives it to you in this format. And the one thing I will say is I'll keep going here, the fidelity of this, the accuracy of this particular one, and I'll just bring this up to begin with. So this is actually my mom's handwriting. It was pretty neat, relatively. It made one mistake, which was forgivable. So if you look here, 1 T of salt should have been tablespoon, but that T really, like if you know how I know how my mom drew her T's, and that was actually upper.
She hedged her bets when it came to lowercase and uppercase T's.
But just by itself, yeah, exactly. That could be either, depending on what you want to do with it. So that was the first kind of mind-blowing thing, is that the transcription for this was excellent. Usually with transcriptions, there's a little bit of like, okay, like close enough, but not really. But it got a lot of the colloquial phrasing in here. So 1 cup plumped raisins, golden preferred, golden preferred. And then even though I could use the code version of this if I wanted to by copying it, I asked it to reformat into a table, put the ingredients into 2 columns, and number the instructions. Certainly. Here's the recipe formatted into a table with ingredients in 2 columns and the instructions numbered. And it does it.
So in our testing, we found that at worst it was like 90% accurate with the recognition of the handwriting and converting it to text, which is pretty remarkable. And I think the fact that there's an application on the phone that lets you just take a photograph within the application, or you can just have a photograph on your phone anyway and do it, sort of on the go is quite remarkable. And I think also, and certainly you can take a picture on your phone and send it to your laptop if you want.
Yeah, and here's another example, and we'll go back and see if ChatGPT is behaving in just a second. But so here's again another example, same kind of concept, nothing particularly different with this one. I'll show you a really interesting example in just a moment. So in this case, I didn't tell it to transcribe. If you just throw an image in by itself, it will ask you, hey, what do you want me to do with it? Same thing here. So again, in this case, this is the unformatted version, and this might just be fine. This might be exactly what you need. Okay, let's go back. Let's just test and see if maybe we're good. So this is the challenging one. So I'll show you this. So this is a very well used, it's probably the most well-used page in this particular cookbook. You can see it's got lots of stains. The writing is a little different. It's not in traditional recipe format. It doesn't list the ingredients. It doesn't do anything except really almost as if you're transcribing it. Someone was just speaking and you were writing it down. So let's cross our fingers. Let's see.
Oh, let's hope.
Nah, that's not looking good. As soon as you get that blink. No, I don't.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
It's really disappointing because this is gonna. Yep.
Yeah.
So luckily, we did this before, and we can show you.
This is kind of like a cooking show, though, right? You're reaching into the oven, and the casserole comes out.
This is true. I'm putting on my best Julia Child today. So again, this one, there was an immediate error up front. So again, you can kind of forgive it. The actual title of this recipe is Soused Apple Hill Cake. And it decided it was spiced apple rice cake. But the heading aside, you just have to take my word for it here that the ingredients and the transcription itself, despite all of this mess, was actually on point. Like there were almost no corrections. Like I would say 95% accurate. You will notice that it understands. It gives you a little disclaimer at the end. Please note, text was partially obscured by stains, so some words were inferred based on context and cooking terminology. So what does that mean? It means, like everything in AI, double check it.
Yeah, for sure.
Double check all your results. because, well, because of
Otherwise, you're going to be making a spiced apple rice cake
that. That's right.
and only putting a teaspoon of something when you meant a tablespoon. Yep.
Yep. So once again, I told it to format it into a table. And this is actually, again, an interesting example. The more open-ended sometimes you are, the very directive. And I said, put it into 2 columns and whatever. And that example actually kind of what I would say like flattened out the character of the recipe. So again, that was this one, right? So I said, put it into a table and then put the ingredients in 2 columns. And so I was being very directive, and it did what I wanted it to, but it also kind of lost some of the what I would call again like the character, the personality of that original recipe. Which again, it might be fine, but like if you wanted to keep things like the remarks, then maybe keeping it open-ended is a better guess or better option. Okay, so what are the chances that ChatGPT has gotten better or is
It's slim and none. One thing also to point out when you do ask it to generate a table like that it's doing it. It's done in Markdown, so you could ask for the code to see the code in Markdown, and it'll show you. I always get confused about how to do the columns and the rows. And
yeah, let's try to pick up this. This is another test. So like, convert this table to. You want to say convert it to Markdown?
Yeah, or show me the Markdown.
Okay.
Or something.
All right.
Because it is. I mean, it generates it in Markdown, and then it's just.
Okay. Again, this may
rendering it.
I don't know.
Wow.
I feel like we may be hitting.
This is.
It's a bummer. This is I think we've been lucky.
We definitely have. We definitely have. If yesterday though was a harbinger,
That's all right. We've done enough things here that again, it's not as exciting to It's not as exciting to show you this in retrospect versus live, but hey, at least we can keep showing you. So last thing I'll show you with this recipe thing, and then we'll move on. So this is another example. This was a recipe that was tucked into the cookbook, and I decided, okay, and I figured out this one is pretty beaten up. What's this going to do? So again, uploaded a photo of a page from some magazine at some point, and that's exactly what it understood. You upload an image of what appears to be an image from a cookbook or a magazine featuring recipes for 2 dishes, roasted chicken and vegetables, and raspberry brulee. Wow, they even got the accents right. I'm impressed. If you need specific information or assistance with any part, feel free to ask. So transcribe. And so again, actually in many ways this is better because it actually took a long time for this to generate in real time. And in this example, it's a little hard to tell from the photo, but actually it's one of those situations where maybe 2/3 of the recipe was on this page, and then it continued on the rest of the on the next page. So actually this is an incomplete recipe. And it understood that too. So down at the bottom, it says the bottom part seems to be cut off. If you need the rest of the instructions, please let me know. So I thought that was interesting. If you need the rest of the instructions, sure, like give me those. And then
make them up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then in classic ChatGPT, it just said, actually, I apologize, I'm unable to do that. I'm like, well, then why'd you ask me? Why'd you tell me? So just be wary. If you think it's going to perform some sleight of hand and fill in the rest of the instructions somehow, it's just not.
Yeah, so sometimes it'll conjure up stuff, the so-called hallucinations, if it doesn't have the answer. But yeah.
So one thing I will point out here. So there is this feature on the mobile app, and we played around trying to understand what this did a little bit, but essentially it gives you this feature called annotation, which just allows you to use your touchscreen interface to draw, a circle or square or whatever over an area. And this actually confused us for a little bit because we thought it might understand that automatically. In other words, if you drew this circle around the first, the top half of the page for the first recipe, we thought maybe it would just, automatically understand that's the piece that you want to use, and it actually doesn't. So you have to be very specific and tell it, um, transcribe the circled portion of this image. It will not just necessarily do it automatically. In this case, I actually just said, transcribe the first recipe because I didn't really want the second one, and it obliged. So it went ahead and did this. Again, it understands the context. If you need the missing parts, please provide a clear image. Okay, so I don't know.
Well, I guess that's one thing to point out, obviously, is that the better quality of the image, the better the quality of the image, the more accurate the transcription will be.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a given. But in the cases of those handwritten, stained, well-used recipe books, I think if the pages are rumpled, crumpled, torn, whatever, then doing a flatbed scan might be better than a photograph from your phone.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're really trying to extract the maximum amount of information, it's a really important document, and you have the time, for sure, getting a higher quality image using a flatbed scanner or some other, system is gonna. So it's garbage in, garbage out, right? The higher quality, the original, the better results you're gonna get. All right, we're gonna roll the dice one more time, and then we just might stop rolling the dice.
Yeah, I looked at the status page on on OpenAI, and it looks like they're having all sorts of trouble.
There's all sorts of stuff. Okay, so well, again, luckily, we can just show what it's supposed to do, and then we'll go back to the ones that we did. So this one here was an interesting example. So this was a photograph of a whiteboard for some notes that we had taken, gosh, like 7 or 8 years ago when we were kind of redesigning some courses and some website stuff. And you could see that, again, this was not a straight on image. Like the angle of the shot was off kilter. There's a highlight flare obscuring some of the content in this to-do list. And there's a lot of abbreviations being used here, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I can't really show you this in real time, but we can go back and look for, is this the right? Oh no, that's our other whiteboard. So this is going to be the problem with this. Yeah, so you're running into some of the dilemmas here. So what it did was it transcribed this fairly well, and again, it's doing a good job of analyzing the text and showing you, what some of the abbreviations are. Although you can actually go ahead and you can try to direct its focus towards things. So in this section, in this one here, you can see that there's this student input section here where we're using abbreviations like designers with no HTML, CSS, or W/no, and so forth. And so in that first example, it's actually not necessarily giving you all of that information. So here we go. So student input, target audience. So it left out the abbreviations after these categories, so designers, creatives, web designers. So I went ahead and I said, okay, yeah, but I'll do that again, but be sure to include everything in that student input section. I said, okay, I'll transcribe it with a focus on fully capturing the student input section. And sure enough, like what it did was it expanded it. So I guess the lesson here is kind of like with everything, your first prompt probably is going to need some refining. You have to be a little persistent in identifying issues and make sure that it's thorough. The beginning of this example is also another interesting one. So for this example, we actually had two separate images of a whiteboard because we couldn't fit the whole thing into the frame or what have you. So this is the first half of this large thing that Andrew was creating years ago when we were creating the job board.
I don't even remember.
Yeah. Okay. So either way, you can kind of see like this right-hand column on the second page, the second image is just a continuation. You know, it's everything to the right of this on the first. So I was curious, like, oh, okay. So if you've got two separate images, like, is it smart enough to to combine and transcribe them? And the answer is like, yeah,
yeah,
does.
ish. It depends. It does a pretty good job, in fairness.
Yep. So again, it'll give you all the code for image one, all the code for image two, and then it creates a combined transcription. And again, it's kind of observant enough or thorough enough to point out the stuff that it's just not there or can't read, but it knows that there's an arrow pointing to something, right? Okay. So so there are some limitations, but let's instead of showing you those, let's look at another example here if I can go find it. Okay, so
one thing that sort of occurred to us, which if you've been using ChatGPT for a while, it was probably an obvious thing, but to have ChatGPT generate alt tags from images that you give it, and you could just say, like, describe this image, and it'll give you a written thing. But as we've demonstrated in the past, that if you add to your prompt enough context, you can get better results that you're more like what you're looking for. And so giving it an image and saying, using the best practices for accessible alt tags, describe this image, and you can get better results. So having it explain to you what an image is can have a very practical purpose. It's not just a party trick where it's like, tell me what you see.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we'll hope to demo that even a little further because so on one hand, there are a lot of apps and most of them probably use AI that just do simple transcription. So that, I think this example maybe moves a little closer to what you were just talking about, Andrew. So which is like, it's not just transcribing images, or in this case, we're actually using a PDF. But it's interpreting them and then allowing you to go in any direction that you want. So this is an example of, and if you're in the audience, you've probably run into this situation dozens of times, if not more, which is, you've got some content that lives maybe inside of a PDF. In this case, this is a series of wireframes and prototypes for a website. And you don't have the source, So wherever this was made, whether it was Figma or whatever, the person who made that source is long gone, or you just don't have access to that content. Like there's a dozen, if not more, reasons why you don't have the original source of something. So in this case, this one is pretty complicated. Let's just say I'm trying to understand like what is even in here. And so go back here. So all I did was I uploaded the PDF that you just saw. So 4 pages of wireframes. And what it really just does is give you a synopsis. It just scrolls through that content, it reads it, it ingests it. It tells you, yeah, this is a series of detailed wireframe designs and revision notes for a forum interface, focusing on usability features for both mobile and desktop platforms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we double checked this. Andrew and I went through, because again, you want to double check the factual content for a lot of these things. Like it said here, the use of infinite scroll. Did it really say that?
Yeah, or the metrics like voices and freshness,
Yeah.
and we couldn't recall if those were actually
Yeah, it was like,
specified in the wireframes.
yeah, this was like 10 years ago. So we're like, I don't know, was that a thing? And turned out actually, yeah, like it was in there. So again, kind of an interesting use of it. If we were live on ChatGPT, we could go in and interrogate this further. So like ask it to, show me the thread listing, the metrics of voices, replies, and freshness, or expand on the section that talked about the use of infinite scroll or what have you. And it would give you some results. Okay, so and it really kind of stinks that we can't do
It
this.
does.
But let's show you one example here. Another one. Let's see. Oh, we can hear you. Oh, oh, I see. Okay, so Roman is talking to us off camera, and you cannot hear him. And what he's just said is we should try it again. I don't know. Sure, try it again. There's one that I'd like to show you, which is one that Andrew came up with, which is using this to generate alt text. Man, it's not.
Please, please, please,
No.
please.
Yeah. So so the demonstration that we're wanted to show you here, and I'll have to go back and see where it is. Maybe it's in this one. Nope. Yeah. So I'm just trying to see if. Yeah. So the demonstration here that we wanted to show you was alt text is for accessibility purposes. So if this was working, and we took this from one of our courses on a take 5 that talked about creating alt tags for accessibility purposes. So this image here is, imagine this was on a website, and you wanted to provide a alternative text description of what's happening in this image. Why would you do that? Well, for a lot of reasons, primarily accessibility. Folks who have screen readers would be able to have the screen reader read out the description of what's on this image in order to understand what it is. So turns out like ChatGPT is really good at doing this. Not coincidentally, probably because it actually scraped a lot of images on the web and took the alt text that people conveniently added to those images and used them in its training model. So it's actually pretty good at generating it.
When it works.
Oh, and I know why this is. It's because you did this one.
Yeah,
Remember?
exactly. So what I can do
Yeah.
is I can do a screenshot of mine and send
Yeah.
it your way, or I
Sure.
can just read to you the two versions of the alt text that it generated.
Yeah. Um,
How about a screenshot and I'll just Slack it to you.
sure. Why don't we do that?
Okay, so um,
And while you're doing that, again, so the thank you. So the oh look, they changed their error message.
yeah,
Oh yeah, it's persisting. It's persisting all throughout our live stream, guys.
yeah, nice timing. Thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll kind of show you. Um, so the first one, let me make sure. Oh, okay, hold on one second. Bear with us, folks. This is the joy of live streaming. We have all sorts of unpredictable stuff for you. Okay, here we go. You see that?
yeah,
Okay. So Andrew essentially uploaded that image, one you just saw, said write an alt tag description for this image. So this is a very simple, this is kind of like the bare bones version. And it said spacious vintage vehicle museum with a high ceiling, showcasing classic fire engines, cars, and a variety of antique gas station signs. The wood beamed interior includes a balcony level with more displays. That's impressive, honestly. It got that. It reads this as a balcony. The atmosphere is reminiscent of an early 20th century garage or service station. Honestly, folks, this is a pretty darn good alt tech description. Like it's really good. Um, but we can do better. How? By giving it a little bit more direction. So what Andrew did here was add this second section here. Use the best practices for accessible alt tags. Now, unfortunately, I can't really compare them back and forth because I can only share one tab at a time. But um, the language here is different. Um, there's not more of it. It's just a little bit more refined.
yeah. I think it's more specific, more detailed. Yeah,
Well, and it kind of starts too with the um, like the wide view of it. So it says an interior view of a vintage automobile museum with high wooden beam ceilings. I don't think the other one did that. Again, yeah. So this one said a spacious vintage vehicle museum with a high ceiling showcasing class. So it kind of like combined a lot of stuff in the first sentence, and then to me, like the second one is better because it that first sentence could probably suffice, right? An interior view of a vintage automobile museum with high wooden beam ceilings, and the rest of this stuff is excellent detail.
yeah. And so obviously if we added more context, more specific context of rules or details or things to focus on or things to exclude, then we would get results that are more aligned with those constraints as well. And there's a point where it doesn't make any difference. The more context,
Yeah.
eventually it's uh, you start to lose any benefit. But
Yeah. But this is an excellent way. Again, writing alt text can actually be really tricky. It's crucial. It's extremely important for accessibility purposes, but it's not actually always easy. And so having something that does a good job, at least helping you, and sure, you could, if it gets to even 90% of the way, and then you have to add some details, then like, hey, that's going to save you a lot of time. I'm going to suggest, Andrew, we do one last one here, and maybe we're not going to do the full hour just because, the thing we're trying to demonstrate isn't working.
Yeah, thanks, OpenAI.
So we're going to kind of end, I think, with this last one here, which I think is actually kind of one of the more interesting examples in the sense of, let's kind of set the context for what we've seen up to this point. So Andrew actually pointed this out pretty well earlier in saying like, okay, isn't this is pretty impressive as a parlor trick, in the sense that like it's doing optical character recognition. So you give it an image and it understands what's in the image, and then it reformats it, and that's cool. But like, what else can it do? It'd be nice to be able to take the content of these images and then further extend the capabilities of ChatGPT to actually interrogate or do some other things with the content that it finds in the image to begin with. So it's one level above transcription. Is that fair to say, Andrew?
Yeah, I think it's looking for connections or inference that it can make, which is sort of the premise of large language models anyway, right? Which is the idea of looking at words and patterns and making sense of what that might mean.
Yeah. So the example that we'll show you here, this is a very, very early version of Gymnasium 1.0. So this actually never really saw the light of day, because of various reasons. But for the most part, this is just a screenshot from some prototype, that one of the creative directors created. And so what we did was we uploaded that. Didn't even give it any instructions at first, so just uploaded the image like I showed you earlier with the recipes. And the interesting thing is it transcribed it. So the image you've uploaded appears to be a screenshot of a web page for an entity named Gymnasium. Hey, we're an entity. That's kind of cool. It shows various elements of the web page, including a logo, a nav bar, large play button, presumably for a video. Yeah, actually. The text on the page indicates that Gymnasium is offering free online courses focused on modern in-demand creative skills. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it did an excellent job of, again, like that PDF of the form that I showed you just a moment ago. Like, it summarizes what is in this image and then it interprets it. And then it says, yeah, if you need specific information from the screenshot or have any questions about the content, feel free to ask. Okay. So we said, what is the value proposition mentioned here? And I think it's fair to say we were kind of impressed with this, right?
Yeah, so I think that obviously we know what our value proposition is, and maybe the question is sort of like, well, since you're not the user, you could ask a bunch of users, or you could ask this amalgamation of robotic users. What's the takeaway? What's the
Yep.
Why am I looking at this?
Yep.
And then you could show another picture and say, does this do it better? Which, sorry,
Yep.
I jumped to the next step.
But it does. It's what's interesting is, again, to me, it's the organization of the content. So it kind of gives you this nice numbered list. It's able to identify things like here, number 6, like initial course offering. So the initial course offering is coding for designers, intended to teach experienced design professionals how to apply visual design tools and concepts to web and mobile projects. So again, it's pulling that from here, true, but it's also just adding some context to it. So this is pretty cool, but then we took it a little further. So again, it tries to summarize the value proposition. It's centered around high quality, relevant education for free to help creative professionals stay ahead in a rapidly evolving digital landscape. So we forced it to be a little more specific, like what's the single most important takeaway? And it said the single most important takeaway is they offer free online courses focused on practical, in-demand skills to help creative professionals adapt to and excel in the rapidly changing digital marketplace. Okay, like actually pretty valid for that that first round. So we then uploaded a more recent, a version 2, and this is using more or less our, not our most recent branding, but close to it. So the next version.
I think technically that was 3 months after we launched.
Was it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So in this one, again, keeping in mind that it understands there's a history involved here. So you can see in this first sentence, in the new image you've uploaded of the web page, the content reinforces and expands on the value proposition previously mentioned. So this is pretty remarkable. It, again, uses ChatGPT's history feature, I guess you could call it, or its memory. And it almost automatically intuits that, we're comparing these, even though we haven't asked it to do anything. This is emphasized again. This tagline is consistent with the previous image. And then again, there are sections that are new here, and so there's no reference to those. That just kind of explains, here's a section called jobs. So again, the most important takeaway from this image, similar to the previous one, is we offer free, practical, and flexible learning opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's cool. Now we said, does this one do a better job of promoting the value proposition? So now we're actively pushing it further and asking for a comparison of the content. So here, comparing the design elements from the two images, the second image does seem to provide a clearer and more direct promotion of the value proposition for several reasons. To me, this is pretty impressive. Not only does it tell you, yeah, but it gives you some rationale for that. It includes explicit calls to action, highlighted opportunities. The second image promotes engagement by including social media sharing options in the section for announcements. The layout seems more organized with clear delineation between different sections. Consistent use of color and branding. So it's, again, making some judgment calls here. That'd be fair to say.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking how useful it would be if some stakeholders that are often involved in looking at designs or prototypes, and their feedback is like, make it pop, make
Right.
the logo bigger, or something like that. And usually it's not very helpful feedback. And I think that quite a lot of the times people don't know what it is that they should be looking for.
Right.
And this is kind of an interesting idea to help prompt, no pun intended, stakeholders to think about these topics in particular.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
yeah.
even for your own, or like I can think of like design students. So back in the or anyone who's just trying to understand. Like I remember these questions oftentimes. I remember talking to a lot of developers who are very focused on the functionality of the thing, and sometimes there'd be remarks like, "Well, I don't understand why is this design better than that one?" Like the number of times I've heard that in many scenarios, and it's sometimes a little tricky to articulate this. And even if this doesn't get it 100% right, it gives you some very good language to use. But honestly, this gets it pretty darn right. So then we took it one more level because, again, this was, as Andrew was mentioning, this is still like 10 years ago or 8 years. I don't know however long it was.
Yeah, I think that would be 10.
Okay. So then we said, okay, well, so let's compare this version with the one that's currently on our website. And I'm going to include this one, first of all, because I have no choice. We're just looking at our pre-recorded prompts. So we asked it to compare it to the current home page. So compare the image to the web page. That was a fail. It didn't really do a good job of doing that. It just said there was an error due to some technical issue. I do find their advice somewhat comical. Since I can't do that, I suggest visiting the website directly in your browser, and then if you can
Type
describe
the description of what you're seeing.
yeah, if you can describe the current design, I can
Mm.
help you compare it to the screenshot. Like, well,
Huh.
that's why not just put the screenshot on it? Yeah, that's what we did. So we took so Andrew took a full page screenshot of our current website from top to bottom, and I was a little snarky. I said, fine, since you don't seem to know how to use a browser, uh, compare this one to the last screenshot. Okay, thank you. And again, it did a very good job. So it broke it down into layout and design. So the current one is more vibrant, uses the space effectively, content and messaging, places a strong emphasis on the newness of their offerings. The message free online courses is still prominent. So again, it understood the history. The current design has more direct calls to action with buttons like embrace the magic, view all courses, which are more engaging and likely to prompt user interaction. Featured courses, job opportunities, social proof, footer section. So again, there's a whole list of things. And in the end, it says here, it seems to provide a more engaging and interactive experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that kind of demonstrates the potential for a lot of what the image recognition can do. It can not only dive in, understand the content within various um, media, whether they be PDFs, screenshots, images, but can then take that information and do something with it.
So I think a couple points that are worth making. One is that there are a number of different types of files that you can upload to ChatGPT. Image files, obviously, PDFs, data and other formats like Excel, text files, and so forth. And if you are uploading a PDF, you may run into accuracy or processing challenges with the content that's in there, depending on how the PDF was produced. And so it may be the case that actually doing a screenshot of the PDF or saving that PDF as a flat image and having it consume it that way may be better. Depends on the internal markup. And the other thing is that there are file size limitations to how many files you can upload and how big those files are. I wish you all the best of luck finding a consistent answer to those questions, because in the documentation it seems to be convoluted and contradictory at times. And so it'll tell you when you've uploaded too many files or too large a file size. I think one of the other things that you'll discover is that if you're uploading files, you may have better luck with a single file that's got many pages as opposed to many pages that are many files of single page PDFs. And the only way that you can know is by sort of testing your the results and seeing if you're getting more or less accurate results, or if it's having a problem processing numerous files. And I think the last point, which is, so it's too bad that we couldn't do this, but the ability to generate the result as you can say, give me a text file and give me a link to download it, but you can also say, make a PDF.
Yeah.
There are a couple limitations to what you can currently do with regard to reading PDFs or producing PDFs, and one of those is that it can't manipulate or work with images that it finds in the PDF. Of course, if you upload an image, then it can work with that, but it also can't generate a PDF with an image on it.
Yeah.
Not reliably.
Yeah, it would be good to show. We'll have to show that in a future live stream, but there is a whole section that, again, it's just not practical to show it here without working the chat. But essentially, yeah, you can generate PDFs. You can take pre-existing PDFs, If you've ever gone into like Adobe Acrobat, it's such a convoluted program, even if you're used to using it often, that sometimes doing simple things like, rearrange. So that the example we're going to show you, one of the was that list of recipes. So let's say you have 6 recipes and each one is on a single page of a PDF. You maybe would like to reorganize them alphabetically. Well, that's something that actually ChatGPT can do fairly easily, and then recombine them into a new one. Other things, and again, the content that it understands in there, such as like the calorie count or the carbohydrates or the protein or the whatever, like all of that is information that could be extracted and either removed, say like, well, no, I don't want that, or maybe I do want that, or so there are some interesting things that you can do with pre-existing content in a PDF, or something that started off as text and you want to export it as a PDF. But well, we're not going to, yeah. So, but if there was a restart, I think we're at the end of our limit anyway. So you'll have to join us next time, and knock on wood, the gods of demonstration live stream were not on our side, but luckily we were able to provide you some hopefully clear and concise directions and an introduction to image transcription, ChatGPT.
Yeah. Thanks for your patience.
Indeed. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next live stream.